Okay, so to get a good idea about moment of inertia, the first thing that we need to do is get an understanding of how to calculate kinetic energy of any object which is rotating about a fixed axis. Okay, so here I have not taken any. It looks like a disk, but you can take any object. Okay, so this is, imagine this is a disk, suppose. Uh, Let me. So if I say that this is a disk, and the disk is rotating in the counterclockwise sense with an angular velocity omega. And here, through the center of the disk, you can imagine an axis, okay, going into the board and coming out of the board. So the disk is rotating about that axis. Now, when we calculated, or let's say when we defined, it's not calculation, but it's just a definition. If you look at kinetic energy of any particle, if a particle has mass m, if it is moving with velocity v, the kinetic energy is defined as half mv square. Okay, so even when we talk about kinetic energy of not just a particle but a huge object, okay, like disk here, the kinetic energy calculation will always start from its definition of half mv square. So to do that, what we do is we take this object, and then this object is definitely made up of a collection of particles. Okay, it's a huge collection of particles. And here I have shown three particles, M1, M2, and M3. So M1 is located at a distance R1 from the center, and then M2 is located at a distance R2, and then M3 is located at a distance R3. Now, if you think about each of these particles, because the rotation is happening about a fixed axis, each of the particles will move around a circle, okay, of a different radius. So when we start, let's say, by writing the kinetic energy of each of these particles and then add them, we should get the kinetic energy of the entire disk of the object. So here, left side, okay, so the first term is the kinetic energy of the particle with mass m1. The second term is the kinetic energy of the second particle, and third particle, and so on. Okay, and we also know that the tangential velocity of a particle can be written as r times omega. We know this, right? Where r is the radius of the circle along which the particle is moving. Now, when we do that, V1 would become, let's say here, whatever V1 we have. So this V1, I can write it as R1 into omega. The tangential velocity of the second particle, I can write it as R2 into omega. The tangential velocity of the third particle, I can write it as R3 into omega. So if I substitute here, I will get half M1 R1 square omega square, and then half M2 R2 square omega square, and so on. So now if we look at this, I can factor out this half and omega square. Okay, the entire object has the same omega. I mean, if you take any particle, the angular velocity of every particle will be same. So half and omega square are factored out, and then whatever you have in between, okay, this is actually defined as moment of inertia.
Okay.
Okay, so this is defined as moment of inertia. Now, if you look at the simple block, okay, at the bottom here, the kinetic energy is written as half mv square. Now, the symbol that they use for moment of inertia is I. So if I write for the rotating disk here, if I write as half I omega square, okay, so the kinetic energy. Now, when we talk about simple particles, I think we said if the particle has higher mass, then it is difficult to change its velocity.
Yeah.
Okay. So even here, we can say similar things. Okay. So if an object has higher moment of inertia, it will be difficult to change the angular velocity of the object. So there is a direct analogy.
Mm.
And then if you say that, okay, if you want to get a heavier object get started, okay, you'll have to apply a larger force, or you can say that you'll have to spend more effort. The same thing here. So, okay, if you want to rotate an object with a higher moment of inertia, it is difficult to rotate it. Okay, so if a disk is not spinning, it is stationary, and then you want to give it a spin, you want to rotate it. If the moment of inertia is higher, you'll have to do more work. You'll have to put more effort. Okay, you understand?
Okay.
So there is a analogy. I mean, this is our translation, and this is rotational motion.
That is. Mm.
Okay. Okay, so this moment of inertia, when we look at it, if you have, let's say, a discrete set of particles, when I say discrete set of particles, you can count the number of particles. In that case, the moment of inertia is written as sigma mi Ri square. But instead of having a system with, let's say, countable set of particles, if you have a continuous object, a solid body, then it's almost like it's little like center of mass calculation. It's just that you don't have a denominator here.
Mm.
And then in the numerator, instead of x, you have x square type of a term. Okay, so integral r square dm.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just, again, you have to understand, this is just a definition.
Mm.
Okay, so if I take a simple ring, okay, so if I take a ring, okay, now whenever they ask you about moment of inertia, three things are important. Okay, so one, mass, okay, radius, and what is the axis about which the object is getting rotated. Okay, so here we can say the mass is m, radius is r, and the axis, if you imagine that this ring is placed on a horizontal table, okay, so this blackboard is the table, the axis passes through the center and then perpendicular to the plane of the ring. Okay, so sometimes they call this as axis of the ring. So here we can say that passes through center and perpendicular to its plane. Okay, now if any problem does not mention the axis about which they want the moment of inertia, then that problem is wrong.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, you can say wrong or it's incomplete. Okay, but sometimes it happens. Okay, sometimes they just assume that you're going to take the moment of inertia about the regular axis.
Mm.
But to be appropriate, they should always mention the axis, and then usually they do. Okay, now in this case, we are saying that by definition, again, here in all these cases, we are assuming that this ring is uniform. Okay, so uniform ring. So by definition, the moment of inertia is summation of mi Ri square, right? Now, if I break this ring into several particles, okay, so suppose if I have a particle here of mass m1, and so there is another particle of mass m2, and another particle of mass m3, and so on. Each of these particles are at a distance r from the center.
Mm.
So this summation, I can write it as m. Let's say if I ignore the summation, let's say I can write it as m1. So r1 square will be simply r square,
R square.
and then m2, then r square, and so on. So here what is really varying? Only the mass is varying. So we can pull the mass terms together. Okay, so when we do this, what do we get here? Okay, if we add all these masses, what do we get? We get the mass of the ring.
Yeah.
So then the moment of inertia will be m
R
r square. Okay.
Okay.
So do you understand this?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, okay, so if I take a uniform disk here, okay, so this is not a ring now, this is a disk. The mass is m and the radius is r, the same thing. Okay, axis passes through the center of the disk and then perpendicular to its plane. Now, in this case, what we can do is, I mean, you have mass everywhere. So mass is present everywhere. You can take this disk and then you can treat it as collection of concentric rings.
Mm.
Okay, so suppose if I take a ring at some radius r, suppose. Okay, so let's say if I take a ring here. So this becomes our sample ring. And the mass of the sample ring, we will take it as yesterday, I think the other class we saw the center of mass calculation. So
Yeah.
whenever we take a sample element, we use the differential term and then dm. And then the radius is r and the thickness of this ring is dr. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, since we are saying that we are treating it as a collection of rings, what we can do is the moment of inertia of the disk, I can take it as the integral summation of the moment of inertia of a sample ring. Okay. Now, what is the moment of inertia of a sample ring? Mass, I'm taking it as dm. And then radius is r. So we just saw this, right? The moment of inertia is mr square. Now here, if I write down mass in terms of the capital M and then capital R, I think our job will be done. Okay, so what is the idea here? We are taking it to be a uniform disk. So mass per unit area is constant. So if I want to get this dm, I can get this dm by taking mass per unit area, capital M, by overall area is pi r square.
Pi r square.
And then the area of this ring, again, we can do the same thing. If you take a pair of scissors and then cut this thin belt of radius r and thickness dr, and then if suppose you spread it.
You get r into dr.
Very good. So the thickness will be dr, but what is the length of this circular belt?
Oh, 2 pi r.
Very good. So this time it will be 2 pi r. So area will be 2 pi r dr. So I have 2 pi r dr. So from here, our dm will be 2 capital M by r square into r dr. So if I substitute here, what do I get? I get 2 capital M upon r square, and then there is another r square already present here. So this would
Okay.
become r cube dr.
Mm.
And then you integrate from 0 to r.
Okay.
So I'll pull this 2 capital M by r square out, and then this would become r to the power 4 by 4. And then you integrate from 0 to r. So you see, this will be r to the power 4 by 4. So you'll end up having m r square by 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, intuitively, let's think about intuitively. If a ring and a disk, if they have same mass, okay, same radius, which is difficult to rotate about the axis passing through the center and perpendicular to the plane?
The ring.
The ring is difficult to rotate. Okay, the reason is the mass of the ring is actually present away from the axis of rotation. Okay, so sometimes it is hard to figure out. I have asked this question several times. Okay, so before, if I had asked the question before doing these calculations, it would be like, sometimes students say that, okay, it is difficult to rotate the disk, but in fact it is difficult to rotate the ring if they have the same mass and then same radius. Okay, now suppose if I take, let's say, if I take a hollow cylinder, okay, so let's say this is my hollow cylinder. The mass of the cylinder is m and the radius is r. And if I rotate the cylinder about its axis, okay, the central axis, what is the moment of inertia? Do you recall this? Okay, so if I take this hollow cylinder, can I treat it as, let's say, stack of rings?
Discs.
No, it is a hollow cylinder. So stack of rings. Now each ring is getting rotated in a similar way.
Okay.
I mean, if I take a ring here, suppose, if I take one ring with mass m1, now it is, if the ring is getting rotated, its moment of inertia is m1 r square. If I take some other ring above or below, let's say I'll take a ring here, its mass is m2, its moment of inertia will be m2 r square, and so on. Okay, so then what do I get? I'm just adding masses of the rings.
mr square.
Mr square. Okay, so if you keep this idea in mind, that if you have a hollow cylinder, you can treat it as a stack of rings. Then the moment of inertia is mr square. Now I think you can easily answer. How about, let's say, if I have a solid cylinder?
Then it'll be 1 by 2 mr.
Very good. So what can you visualize it as?
A stack of discs.
Very nice. Okay, so you can just treat it as a stack of discs. Okay, so this is a stack of discs. And then if m is the mass and then r is the radius, irrespective of the height of the cylinder, we can just say that the moment of inertia is mr square by 2. Okay. Now, what is the moment of inertia of, let's say, if I take a thin rod of mass m, length L, and then I'm rotating it about an axis passing through its, let's say, center of mass. Do you recall?
A rod?
Yeah, thin rod. Let's say uniform thin rod. If you take a uniform thin rod,
Wouldn't that also be like a cylinder?
no. The axis, yeah. I mean, in a way, you are right. I mean, if the axis is along the length of the rod, okay, so then we can just treat it as a cylinder, and then you are right. Okay, but here, let me place the rod. Let's say I'm looking at a rod like this, and then my axis is perpendicular to the rod. Okay, so if I say that the center of mass of the rod is somewhere here, okay, so that's the center of mass. My axis is perpendicular to the rod, so that's the axis, and I'm rotating it like this. Okay, now the mass of the rod is capital M, and then length is L. Do you recall this?
Mm-hmm.
So we will just try and get it quickly. Okay, so we can take this as the origin, and then this is, let's say, our x-axis. What we can do is somewhere here, I'll take a different color. Okay, so let's say this is a sample piece. Okay, so this sample piece is at a distance x from the center of the rod, and then the thickness is dx. Now this sample piece is like a particle. Okay, I can just say it is a sample particle. Okay, so the mass of the sample particle, I'll take it as dm. Now, how do I write the moment of inertia? I know that I'll have to integrate using r square dm. Instead of r square, here r is the distance of the particles. For us, it is x. Okay, x square dm. Now, if I look at this dm, how can I write that? I can write it as mass per unit length into length of the particle, which is dx.
Dx.
So we can substitute that here. Integral x square, this will be m over L into dx. Now, where will you integrate it from?
0 to L.
0 to L, but
L by 2.
You can integrate from minus L by 2 to plus
Okay,
L by
okay.
2. Or I think you know this from your calculus. Na? If you have an even function, you can integrate from 0 to L and then take twice of it.
Yeah.
That is also okay. So maybe we will do that then.
Okay.
So I'll just take twice of this, and then I'll integrate from 0 to L by 2. So that will be. Okay, so now if I complete this, what do I get? So
2 by 3 ml square.
So I have 2 m by L, and then this is, but it is not L by 2. You're going from 0 to L by 2, right?
Oh, yeah.
So x cube by 3, and then 0 to L by 2. So what are we getting here?
1 by 3 ml.
So this is L cube by L square by 8, and then this will be ml square by 12.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now, another interesting thing. I'm sure you might be knowing this. Suppose if I take this end, let's say, if I rotate about an axis passing through this end, what do I have to do in my integration? What changes I'll have to do? I think it will still be this same thing, right? I'll still have m by L x square dx, but my limits will change. Can you suggest the limits if I'm like calculating about an axis passing through the end? Let's call that as IP. And then this, because it is going through the center of mass, let us call this as ICM. Can you suggest the limits for this? You're going from
0 to L.
Nice, 0 to L, right? So now here, if I look at this, I get what? ml square by 3.
3.
Okay. Now, there is a important theorem when it comes to calculating moment of inertia. There's something known as parallel axis theorem. Okay, so if I look at the distance between these two. Okay, so if I look at the distance between these two, the distance between these two is L by 2. Okay, so I have two axes here. One axis is passing through the end, the other axis passes through the center of mass, and they're parallel. So the distance between them is L by 2. Now, the numbers tell us that it is really hard to rotate a rod about an axis passing through its end. And it is in fact true. I mean, if you hold a stick, a very long stick, exactly at the middle, you can actually spin it, rotate it easily. But if you shift your hand near the end, it's actually difficult to rotate it. Okay, so you can also imagine this. Suppose you have a metal rod, and then I place 2 dumbbells. Okay, so initially imagine that these 2 dumbbells touch one another, and then you separate them a little, and then you place your hand in between, hold the rod, and then lift it up. It's really hard, but if you lift it up and then give it a spin, okay, it's maybe easy. But if someone pulls those weights away from your hand, it becomes harder and harder. Okay, so when the weights are pulled away from the axis of rotation, what is really happening? We're actually increasing the moment of inertia and then making it difficult to rotate. Okay, so in this scenario, if I take a look at this IP and then ICM, I can take this IP. So let me write it here. If I take this IP, which is ml square by 3, you can actually verify that this is ICM, which is ml square by 12 plus mass into L by 2 whole square. Okay, now this actually leads to a very important theorem. I mean, we are just justifying it here. We can actually prove it, but we're not doing in this session. There is a very important theorem called parallel axis theorem. Okay, so what that theorem says is, if you're trying to find moment of inertia about an axis passing through any point P, okay, if you happen to know the moment of inertia about an axis passing through center of mass, you can actually obtain this moment of inertia by just adding mass into square of the distance between the axes. Okay, so this theorem is the parallel axis theorem. Okay, so like we discussed, the moment of inertia I is always associated with an axis about which the system is getting rotated. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, so if, I mean, usually all problems have this, so just keep in mind. And let's say, okay, so this is the parallel axis theorem I was talking about. Okay, so if you have 2 axes, P and then center of mass, the moment of inertia about an axis passing through P can be written as moment of inertia about an axis passing through center of mass plus md square, where d is the distance between the axes. Okay, so this is a general theorem, and then this is a very useful theorem. Okay, suppose if I take one example here. Okay, so now we already know the moment of inertia of the disk. Okay, So if I consider, let's say this is our disk. Let's say that's the center of mass. And then I rotate about this axis. Okay. So that's the center of mass point. Okay. So M is the mass of the disk and then R is the radius. So if I rotate about this axis, the ICM is M R square by 2. Now suppose if they ask us, okay, they say that, okay, no, I don't want to rotate about the center. I want to take some point on the edge. Let's say if I take a point on the edge, P, and then I have an axis. Okay, so this axis is still perpendicular to the plane of the disk, but I'm rotating about this axis. Now I don't want to go back and then integrate and then get the answer. Okay, it may not be convenient every time. Okay, so this theorem is very helpful. So what we can do, okay, I know the moment of inertia about an axis passing through center of mass. And then all I have to do is I need to get the distance between the center of mass and the point P. So what is the distance between the center of mass and the point P here? It is R itself.
R.
Okay, our D is R itself. So we can just simply get this by, okay, IP is ICM is MR square by 2.
MR square by 2.
Plus I'll do MR square. So this becomes 3 by 2 MR square. Okay, so you understand this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in addition to parallel axis theorem, there is another useful theorem. Okay, it's called perpendicular axis theorem. But this is a limited version theorem. Okay, it cannot be used every time. Okay, it is only used for, let's say, thin plates or thin laminas. Okay, so if you have a circular plate or a sheet of paper, okay, in those cases, you can use this. Okay, otherwise, you cannot use this. Okay, just keep that in mind. And then the axis X, Y, and Z, I think you can imagine that they're like our regular rectangular axis, X, Y, Z axis. So they're all mutually perpendicular. And usually X and Y, they lie on the plane of the lamina. And Z is perpendicular to the lamina. So suppose if I imagine, let's say this is my disk. Okay, so if this is a thin disk, and then if I take, this is my x-axis lying on the lamina, and this is my y-axis lying on the lamina, and then z-axis is perpendicular. Okay, so these are mutually perpendicular. So now when I spin this disk, I can select this x-axis and then I can rotate. Okay, I can have an axis aligned along the x-axis and then rotate. So I will get moment of inertia Ix. But if I don't want to do that, if I want to rotate about an axis along y-axis, I can do that. In that case, I'll get Iy. Or if I want to rotate about this axis, I need to take care of this Iz. Okay, so these three moments of inertias are related like this. Okay, so this is also pretty useful theorem. Okay. Okay, so let's say if I take, this is a square plate, suppose. It's a uniform square plate. Mass is M and the edge length is L. Now, if I take the center of mass, let's say, and then if I pretend that I have an axis, okay, and then I'm rotating about this axis, suppose. I want to find the moment of inertia. So in this case, what we can do is we can actually divide, okay, you can divide the square plate into thin rods. Okay, so divide the square
Okay.
plate into thin rods. So suppose I have a rod here. You can imagine that it has mass m1. So there's another rod. Okay, so mass m2 and so on. And then when we are doing it, we are making sure that these rods are perpendicular to the axis of rotation.
Mm.
Okay, so let's say in this case, we are dividing them horizontally. Now, if I take each of these rods, it's like a thin rod getting rotated about an axis passing through center of mass. So I can say that moment of inertia of the first rod will be m1 L square by 12. And then the second rod would be m2 L square by 12. And so on.
Mm.
So again, what is common here? L square by 12 is common. I'm just adding m1, m2 and so on. So what do I get? I'll simply get ml square by 12.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what if I take the axis the other way around? Suppose if I take an axis horizontally, what do you think will happen? Suppose if I take, let's say again, this axis is still passing through the center of mass.
Mm.
So what will be the moment of inertia about this axis?
Be the same.
Very good. It will be the same. Now think about this. Can I call this as x-axis and this is y-axis?
Yeah.
So z-axis is out of the board. Okay, I'm just placing. So z-axis is out of the board. So that is z.
Mm.
Okay. So now I know ix, I know iy. Okay. So we know that from here we are getting ix is equal to iy is equal to iz. Sorry, what am I saying? Ix is equal to iy is equal to ml square by 12. So what is iz? If you look at the perpendicular axis theorem, x and y axis are on the
ml
plane
square
of
by
the
6.
plate. Very good. So I can just add them. Right, ix plus iy is equal to ml square by 6. Okay, it's easy. You understand this. Now, let me give one problem to you. So let's say I have a now uniform rectangular plate. So uniform rectangular plate. The length of the rectangle is A and the width of the rectangle is B. Now I take this corner vertex, let's call that as P. Mass of the plate is capital M. Okay, so the axis passes through P and perpendicular to the plate. Okay, so can you get the moment of inertia?
Mm.
Okay, so here what we can do is I can take, let's say, in the plane of the rectangular plate, suppose I can treat this as x-axis and this is y-axis. Now if I happen, but I need about an axis perpendicular to the plate and then passing through P. Maybe I'll call that as Z-axis. What we need is IZ. Okay, so this is basically IZ. Okay, IZ is what we need. For a moment, forget about Z-axis. Okay, so come to X-axis. If I am rotating about X-axis, what I can do, I can take this rectangular plate and then cut into horizontal strips. Okay, each strip has, let's say, mass M1, suppose, and M2, and so on. Okay, so M1, M2, and so on. So about X-axis, okay, what is happening about X-axis? I am making a mistake here. Okay, so if I want to calculate the moment of inertia about X-axis, tell me, should I divide this into horizontal strips or vertical strips?
Oh, vertical.
We have to divide into vertical strips. Okay, so let me back it up a little here.
So you get MB square by 3.
Yes, MB square by 3. So it is not going away. Okay, let me erase that. Anyway, I think we don't have to erase. Let's say if you take these vertical strips. So each of the vertical strips has mass M1, M2, and so on. About X-axis, I'll get like M1 B square by 3 plus M2 B square by 3. And then you add all of them. So what do we get here? Capital M B square by 3. Now, if I want about Y axis, then I divide this into horizontal strips. You understand? So then Iy will be what? Iy will be, can I say MA square by 3? You understand this? So if I want about y-axis, for y-axis, you make horizontal cuts. I mean, you don't literally make, you imagine this. Okay, if you want x-axis, you make vertical cuts.
Vertical cut.
And then this is z-axis, IP is like z-axis. So then this will be Ix plus Iy. Then what do we get here? I think M by 3 is common. I'll get A square plus B square. Okay, so do you understand this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, next object, I think very common object is hollow sphere. You remember the moment of inertia for hollow sphere?
I remember for solid sphere.
Okay, what is it for solid sphere?
2 by 5 mr square.
2 by 5 mr square. Very nice. Okay, question. I have a hollow sphere, I have a solid sphere. Each of these spheres have the same mass, same radius. Whose moment of inertia is greater? If I'm rotating them about their axis or along any diameter.
I guess hollow sphere.
Why?
Because that's what happened in the case of ring and disk.
So in the ring, what did really happen to the mass? Yeah, very nice. So for the ring, mass was like away from the axis. So even when I take a solid sphere and then a hollow sphere, if I'm rotating these objects about the diameter, for a sphere, if you think about it, the mass is away from the axis, most of the mass. So it becomes harder to spin. Okay, so when the mass is uniformly distributed, it becomes easier to spin. Okay, very nice. Okay, so I don't know at this point, should I really look at the derivations? I think we can skip the derivations, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just integration anyway. Okay, so I have a hollow sphere and then I have a solid sphere. So if I happen to rotate, this is a hollow sphere, but these are very important objects. So mass is m and the radius is r. So I take any diameter, okay, and then I rotate it. Okay. So the moment of inertia, try to remember this 2/3 number. Okay. So 2/3 mr square. And then I think this seems to be everyone's favorite. Even I find this in my class. Everyone remembers solid sphere. I don't know why. Everyone remembers
Like
solid
that's
sphere.
asked the most.
Maybe that is the reason. Okay, I've never people might forget hollow, but solid sphere moment of inertia they rarely forget. So this is 2/5 mr square. I think let us again, as I said, skip the derivations part because I think anyway the application is more important.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what? Well, I mean, mostly the problems that I'm going to discuss are actually mains questions. Uh, but I thought to save space, and then some of them were like very easy, so I slightly modified. Okay, so we can discuss them.
Okay.
And then some problems may not be mains, but they are like mains problems. Okay, so but today you can say that all are mains problems.
Okay.
We can discuss them. Okay, so radius of gyration is again a concept. In the sense, it's not really helpful now. Maybe later on, maybe it is useful. The idea is this. Okay, so suppose, okay, so if I take a disk and then I rotate, this is a disk, and then I rotate about an axis passing through its center of mass. Okay, so I rotate it. Then what is the moment of inertia if m is the mass and then r is the radius? The moment of inertia is mr square by 2. Now I don't want to take the disk. Okay, so I'm not changing the axis of rotation, but I'm taking a particle. Okay, so a particle is considered. Let's say instead of a disk, you consider a particle. Consider a particle of mass, let's say of same mass. Okay. Consider a particle of same mass because you're considering a particle of same mass. And then you're placing that particle at some distance. Okay, so it has same mass. And then let's say you're placing that particle at a distance k. Okay, so this k is a distance. Now, if I rotate this particle, the moment of inertia I'll get is mk square. Now, when they take this k as the radius of gyration, the idea is instead of rotating the disk, okay, if I rotate a particle having the same mass, at what distance should I keep it from the axis so that I get the same moment of inertia? Okay, so the idea is to get the same moment of inertia. You understand?
Yeah.
So that means for this disk, what is the radius of gyration? Okay, I want the same moment of inertia. So if I take a particle, I'll try to place it at a distance of r by root 2. In this case, that will be the answer. You understand? Okay, so try to use this concept and then get the answer for this problem. Okay, so here suppose I get the moment of inertia. Okay, so I get the moment of inertia of this as I. Okay, I get the moment of inertia. Let's say mass of this is this disk with the hole is capital M. Now, to get the radius of gyration, I'm going to treat it as a particle, and then that particle, when rotated about the same axis, will have the same moment of inertia. So that means I will take I, whatever moment of inertia I get for the disk, and then equate it to mk square, where k is the radius of gyration.
Okay.
You understand? So here I don't know mass of this annular disk, and I don't know the moment of inertia. I need to find both of them. You understand? So what we will do is we will just first, let's say if I want to find the mass, I will try to take this disk, and I can say that it is a collection of concentric rings. Better give me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, if I take the disk, I can say that this is collection of concentric rings. I can do that. So let's take a ring somewhere here. Okay, so suppose if I take a ring, so let's say so if I take this collection of rings, okay, so what we can do, let's say, if I take a ring somewhere here, okay, so let's take a ring here. Okay. Oh, my ring is awful. Okay, so let's pretend that that is a ring, okay. Okay, again, I have not drawn it nicely, but the ring is concentric of radius r, and then thickness is dr. So you can visualize that, right? Now, this is our sample ring, okay, in our integration process. Now, if I say that mass of this sample ring is dm, can I say I can get the total mass as an integral of dm? I can do that. Okay. Now, what is dm? I can get mass per unit area, which is given to us sigma naught by r. So let's say I'll take mass per unit area, that r is there, into area. And we know the mass of, the area of such a ring is 2 pi r dr. So we can put that 2 pi r dr. Right. So here, luckily, what is happening? This r disappears. Now you're going to integrate. The material starts from radius a and then ends at radius b. So you're going to integrate from a to b. So luckily, this r disappears. So the integral is simply sigma naught into 2 pi
B
into
minus A.
just r. So p minus a. Very nice. So you have mass. Now we need to get moment of inertia. So I think we have already seen that if I want, let's say, moment of inertia, I'll do it here. Oh, I have answer here also. I don't know why the answer came up. I was supposed to hide the answer. Anyway, so the moment of inertia of the disk is, can I say moment of inertia of the sample ring? Okay, now when I'm trying to do that, for sample ring, mass is dm and then r square, right? So let's pull this dm we wrote here. Okay, so this is dm, right? So I'll write sigma naught by r into 2 pi r dr.
dr square.
Okay, into r square. Very fantastic. So into r square. So in this case, what is the integral really? So I have sigma naught 2 pi as it is. I think my integral is r square dr
Yeah,
from a to b.
A to B.
So what is the moment of inertia? This is mass. Moment of inertia will be
Sigma 2 by 3 sigma pi.
so sigma naught into 2 pi. This is r cube by 3. So if I substitute the limits, can I say I'll get b cube minus a cube by 3? You're okay?
By 3.
I think this is fine. We get
Yeah.
r cube by 3, and then we substitute the limits, we'll get b cube minus a cube by 3. Now we have this definition of the radius of gyration. So here, now I know moment of inertia of the disk. I know the mass of the disk. I can just use this guy. So I'll substitute 2 pi sigma naught
Oh, okay.
into b cube minus a cube. This is actually very lengthy. I'll show you an easy method. Is equal to mass is again 2 pi sigma naught into b minus a into k square. So what is k square? I think b cube minus a cube can be written as b minus a into that a square plus b square plus ab, right? So one b minus a disappears. So I have a square plus b square plus ab by 3. So what is the radius of gyration here? You get a square root of that. You understand better? So a square plus b square plus ab by 3. Okay, so that is what we have here.
Yeah.
Okay, a square plus b square by 3 square root. Okay, so let me know if you have questions here. Otherwise, I'll show you another method. You're okay with this?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, have you ever heard about, let's say, this is done both in center of mass calculations and in moment of inertia calculations. They use a technique called using negative mass idea. Ever heard about that, negative mass?
No.
Okay. So you've heard about antimatter, antimatter. So if antimatter comes with normal matter in contact, so they disappear into energy. You know that? I mean, if you take electron has its antimatter called a positron. If electron and positron, they come in contact, they disappear into energy. So you don't have material anymore.
Oh.
Okay, so let's pretend that this negative mass is something like that. Okay, so if you place negative mass on our normal mass, the mass disappears into, let's say, cavity. Can we imagine that?
Yeah.
Okay, so and then on top of that, you still remember the moment of inertia for a disk, right? So it is mr square by 2.
Yeah.
Now what we can do here is, in our discussion, okay, we anyway have the answer. We will treat our, let's say, disk with a hole as two objects. As two objects. One, a disk of radius b, and disk of radius a. Okay, so you have disk of radius a. Now, when I take disk of radius b, I will say that it has positive mass. And then when I take disk of radius a, I'll say that I have negative mass. So what will happen when I add them? What should happen? I'll get a hole. You understand? So I have this disk of radius B. So I have mass everywhere. And then I have this special negative mass disk of radius A. So this is a special dangerous mass, okay? So if you place it exactly over the position where you want the hole, you will get this.
Okay.
Again, to explain the concept, I'm taking time, but if you get the idea, getting the answer is actually pretty straightforward. Now, that means the moment of inertia of this is basically moment of inertia of this disk plus moment of inertia of this disk, because you are rotating about the same axis. Now we know moment of inertia is mr square by 2. So now for this, I will use positive mass. How do I get the mass? The mass per unit area is sigma naught by r. Okay, but I'll have to integrate, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, now that integration, if you see, go back here, this integration, the only thing that we will do here is when I get the mass, I'll integrate from 0 because I'm assuming a complete disk.
Okay.
So 2 pi r dr, I will integrate from 0 to b. So what do I get here? I get 2 pi sigma naught. Instead of b minus a, what will I get? I'll get
Just
b.
B.
Just b. So this is what we're going to use here. So I can take the mass as sigma naught into 2 pi into b. Okay. And then radius square. So this is just mass. Remember, this is just mass. And then radius square is b square. And then divide by 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And then here in now, because it has negative mass, instead of plus, I will use minus. So I still have that sigma naught into 2 pi. Now what will be its mass? Instead of b, I'll have a. And then it is a disk again. So r square, a square by 2. You understand this? Then when we, let's say, when I subtract this, what do I get?
You
So I
get
get sigma naught 2 pi. Okay, so by 2. And then I'll get b cube minus a cube. Okay. No, but the problem is we are missing a 3. So if you look at this here, we are getting a b, but we are not, sorry, we have a 3 here, but we don't have a 3 there. So what might be happening here? You understand what is happening here? You
this is
understand?
for the complete thing.
So see, if I go like this, then I will make a mistake. Why? Because what am I doing? I am just taking. So this is actually a mistake. That is why, you see, one of the options actually had 2. Students know this trick. They do this, and then they see that 2, and then they're so happy, and then they tick it. But this problem, even if you know this trick, you have to be very careful. Okay, why? I'll explain the reason. Okay, I purposefully done this. If you look at this mass is for the complete disk. Okay, but I mean, the mass is actually changing from point to point. So I cannot take the complete mass and then multiply by b square and then divide by 2. So I will be wrong there.
Okay.
You understand? Because ultimately this disk, if the mass is not distributed uniformly, You can do that only when mass distribution density is uniform everywhere. So when you take mr square by 2, you can only do that if mass distribution is uniform. You understand better?
Yeah.
So here I should not, I mean, I'll still be using this idea, but this will be wrong. So instead, what I will do is, if you go back, I will use this,
Okay.
not this. Okay. I will use this for mass. For mass, it is okay. For getting mass is okay. But for moment of inertia, I will use this. And then instead of integrating from A to B, what I will do, I will integrate from 0 to B.
0 to B.
So I will get sigma naught 2 pi B cube by 3. So here I will get 2 pi sigma naught B cube by 3 for this guy. And then for the other negative mass, I'll get minus 2 pi sigma naught A cube by 3. So this problem, I think somehow, even if you know this trick, there is a high chance that the answer selected will be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So then if you look at this, it is like 2 pi sigma naught by 3 into B cube minus A cube. And then mass is 2 pi sigma naught into B minus A. So you will get the radius of gyration as this into K square you do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the problem. Okay. I mean, I could have done this directly provided mass distribution was uniform. Okay. Everywhere, if the density is same, then that is okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So here, the one, I mean, you have two objects. One is the sphere and the other is a solid cylinder, right? Now let's worry about the sphere. Originally, I have, let's say this is the original sphere. Let's say, oh, what is happening? What did I do? Oh, I did not select the pen. Okay. Original sphere. Let's say this is the original sphere, suppose.
I can't see anything.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. The sharing was pause. Okay. So original sphere. This is original sphere. Original sphere. Let's say the radius is r and mass is m. Now, when I take this small sphere, what is the original volume? Original volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube. Now, let's say the radius of this new sphere is r. What will be its volume? Its volume will be 4 by 3 pi small r cube. Now, this volume is 12.5% of the original volume. So, that is 1/8 of 4 by 3 pi r cube. So from here, if you ignore 4 by 3 pi, I'll get r as r by 2. Now, if volume is 1/8, can I say mass will also be 1/8? So mass of this sphere is m by 8. We are okay here. Now, if I want to get the moment of inertia of the solid sphere, I know it is 2 by 5 mr square. But I have to be very careful. Mass is m by 8 here. Radius is r by 2. You're okay? So what do I have here?
How is radius r by 2?
We obtained this.
Oh.
Yeah. So now if I look at it, what do I have? 2. And then in the numerator, I think I'll have 1 by 4 here. So this 1, 2 disappears. So I have mr square by 80. You're okay?
Mm.
Now we need to get I2. So
Mm.
to get I2, what do we have to do? The solid cylinder height is given.
Pi r square h.
Solid cylinder height is given. Okay, so this is 7r. I don't know its radius. Okay, so let's call this radius as x this time.
Mm.
Now, what is the volume of this? Yeah, we can say pi x square. Oh, sorry. What is the height given as 7r, right?
7r.
I took it as 2r. So this is 7. Okay, so the volume of this is pi x square into 7r. Now, can I say that if the volume of the small sphere is 1/8, the volume of the cylinder will be 7/8 of the original sphere.
Mm.
So I can take 7/8 of the original sphere volume, which is 7/8 into 4/3 pi r cube. Right. So from here, I think we need x square, just x square. So if I take x square, what do I get x square? I think 7r disappears. So I will get r
1
square
by
by
3 pi r
6.
square. No?
1r will disappear. So r square by 6 we will get.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now for a solid cylinder, what is the moment of inertia? We know moment of inertia as mr square by 2. But what is the mass of this? If this has m by 8, the mass of the cylinder will be 7m by 8. Radius is x. So I'll take x square by 2. Okay, x square I can substitute. So what do I have? 7m by 8 into x square is r square by 6. And then I have this 1 by 2 also. Okay, so how much is this? I think in the numerator, I think we'll get 96.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. So 7 by 96 mr square. Are you okay with the calculation?
Yeah.
Then what they want, they don't want either of them. You want I1 by I2. So finally, after this, we'll have to get I1 by I2. So I'll do it here. So I1 by I2 is how much? So I have mr square by 80. I think mr square anyway disappears. And then divide by this. So I'll flip it. Okay, I'll write into 96 by 7 mr square. I think how much is this?
6 by 35.
6 by 35. Yeah. So that is the answer. You understand better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So like I said, just because mass and radius is given, we should not, let's say, select the option with mr square by 2. So let's take the disk, because we are supposed to integrate mass multiplied by r square. Okay, when we are trying to get the moment of inertia. So what we do is we take a ring somewhere here. So again, this is a bad disk and bad ring. But imagine, okay, so this is a disk and this is our sample ring. Okay, I can actually draw nicely on blackboard, the chalkboard. I get nice circles. Digitally, it becomes a little difficult. So R,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, radius, and then the thickness is dr. So what we can do is two things. Okay, since we need to express the answer in terms of the given mass m, we'll have to integrate for both mass and then moment of inertia. So if you look at the mass, we know mass is integral of dm. So when I take dm, mass per unit area is given as kr square. So let's write that first, kr square, and then into area of this ring. So area of the ring is, we know it is 2 pi r dr. And then if you look at this, if I pull constants 2 pi k, and then we're integrating r cube dr. So we're going to integrate from 0 to capital R.
0 to R.
Yeah, 0 to R. So 2 pi k, and this becomes r to the power 4 upon 4. So the mass comes out to be pi k r to the power 4 upon 2. So you have this. Then if I want the moment of inertia of the disk, we are saying the moment of inertia of the disk is the summation of the moment of inertia of the sample rings. Okay. So now if I take a sample ring, the moment of inertia is simply mr square. So I have mass is dm and it is r square. So what do we have here? So what is dm? Dm, I think we can take again same kr square into 2 pi r dr. We can do that. Okay, so let's put that here. Kr square into 2 pi r dr. So that's just dm. Okay, so that is just dm, and then r square. So if I pull constants here out, 2 pi k, here I will get r to the power 5 dr. This I'm integrating it from 0 to r. So what is the moment of inertia? I'll get 2 pi k. I think this is r to the power 6 by 6. So we get pi k r to the power 6 by 3. Now out of this, we know pi k r to the power 4 is 2m. So I can just write this as 2 by 3 m r square. Very good. So it's nice. You understood. If you understand the concepts, you will get the problems.
Yeah.
And in NEET, they ask integration related problems, but I think it's rare. They go easy on students. Okay, but I think sometimes I have seen they place, but not many. Okay, so now what is happening? Yeah. Okay, so to get this moment of inertia about a diameter, what you can do is you can just take, let's say I'll take a perpendicular axis. Okay, so I'll call this x-axis and this y-axis. Now, as long as I'm taking an axis along the diameter, can I say that I'll get the same moment of inertia? Ix will be equal to Iy. I mean, it doesn't matter if I rotate like this or if I rotate like this, I'll get the same answer. But if I have an axis perpendicular to the disk and passing through the center of mass, let's say that is our z-axis, and then we know the moment of inertia for z-axis, which is mr square by 2. If I use perpendicular axis theorem, I know Iz is Ix plus Iy. So Ix and Iy by symmetry, they are equal. So I can take this as 2 into Iy or Ix. So this is mr square by 2.
Mr square by 4.
And then Iy will be mr square by 4. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do one more. One more question. You should be able to give answer very quickly. So let's say I have, let's consider this is a pizza. Okay. So this is a pizza. Okay. And then pizza we are considering as a uniform disk. Okay. So nowadays, I think they are only uniform disk, not much of topping. So there's only some layer of change. So if mass is m, radius is r, if I rotate about an axis passing through its center perpendicular to it, the moment of inertia is mr square by 2, right?
Yeah.
Now suppose I make, let's say, 8 slices. Okay, I make 8 slices. So let's make these slices first. Okay, so I have these 8 slices. And again, they're all equal slices. Okay, 8 equal slices. I ate 7 slices. Okay, so there is only one slice left. Okay, so there's only one slice left, 8, 7. The slice which is left, suppose this slice is left. I'm just playing around with it. Okay, so let's say this is the slice left. I place a toothpick here, okay, vertically, and then I spin it. Okay, it will have some moment of inertia. What will be that moment of inertia? So very nice. Okay, so we can just say that you said mr square by 16, right? Okay, that's nice. So why? Because each slice is getting rotated in an identical fashion. So that means if I have this slice with mass m1, even though I don't have a complete disk, every sector will have same moment of inertia, m1 r square by 2. So for this slice, the mass is m by 8. So m by 8 r square by 2. So it is mr square by 16. Very nice. Sometimes they may ask question like this. They have made 8 slices, but each slice has mass m itself.
Oh.
Then what do you do?
It's just mr square by 2.
Fantastic. Okay, in that case, just mr square by 2. You understood? Okay, so this is the mass of slice. So they might trick sometimes using such language. Okay, so you have to be careful. Okay. Then let us do one more. This also, without integration, you will be able to answer very quickly. Suppose if I have this is a solid cylinder, suppose. Okay, so maybe I'll fill it up. Okay, so this is a solid cylinder. The length of the cylinder is L, radius is R. Now I have an axis passing through the center of mass of the cylinder. Okay, so there the center of mass, perpendicular to the rod, and then if I rotate about this axis, what will be the moment of inertia? Okay, so to solve this problem, let's say without integration, what we can do is we can take a limiting case. So suppose if I take the radius and then make it really small, then it becomes a thin rod. Okay, so it becomes a thin rod. Now the thin rod is getting rotated about an axis passing through its center of mass. Then what is the moment of inertia? We get ml square by 12. Now instead of that, I keep the radius, but I make length 0. So then what will I have? I'll have a thin disk. Okay, so this is a thin disk, but this disk is getting rotated about its diameter. You see that? Yeah. So if it gets rotated about the diameter, we have already seen that the moment of inertia is mr square by 4. So now I have both the flavors here. So I can say that the moment of inertia will be, I'll just add them. I have mr square by 4 plus m L square by 12. Okay, so this is, I think this was asked in mains in 1 year. Okay, so you don't have to integrate. I think if you look at it, if this idea clicks, okay, you can immediately answer it.
Okay.
Okay, so